Hello, everyone, and welcome to ADC Sports Dallas Primetime. I'm Mauricio Rodriguez, this time streaming from the road to talk about the Dallas Cowboys with you guys. Thank you for being here. Thank you for joining the show. Let me know in the chat whether I need to increase the volume of the mic or decrease it. Let me know what you guys think because I'm using a different setup since I am on the road. Let me know what you guys think, and I will try to adjust and we'll try to have the smoothest possible experience here on ADC Sports Dallas Primetime being on the road. But I'm excited to talk about the Dallas Cowboys with you because I took the road to watch the All 22 for Washington, and I have some thoughts to share with all of you. So let me know in the chat. And of course, make sure you hit the like button. Make sure you share the show. We'll take an early look at the Washington football team. We'll also talk a little bit about the possibility of the Cowboys using more outside runs. And we'll close the show out talking about some movement in the betting spread for the Cowboys NFC East matchup this Sunday. And also why the Cowboys run defense might be facing their toughest challenge yet. Thank you guys. Thank you for being in the chat. What is up, Tommy? And also, look at that. I didn't know this was a thing. We have a Mrs. Tom Downey's burner account. This is amazing. Usually we get Tom Downey's burner account. This is Mrs. Tom Downey burner account. She says, standing in for Tom Downey's burner account for the night. No funny quips from me, just that he's had to miss tonight's show and we'll be here tomorrow. Hey, thank you. And I thought that was really great. I appreciate that. And also, Peter Rizzo, what is up? Welcome to the show. Make sure you share the show. Make sure you hit the like button. And here we go. Let's start the show officially. Prime time on the road. Hello, everyone, and welcome to ADC Sports Dallas Primetime. I'm Mauricio Rodriguez, streaming with you live every Sunday through Thursday night here on Dallas On Demand Sports Talk Network at 8 p.m. Central. And for more Dallas Cowboys content, make sure you check out adcsports.com/Dallas. For your Cowboys content, for your Mavericks content, make sure you check that out. Read those articles, including some thoughts on the players that are coming back from injury for the Dallas Cowboys. Randy Gregory about to come back. The same for Neville Gallimore, and of course some other key players that might be available because the Cowboys are activating players from the COVID-19 list, including Terrence Steele. And Jerry Jones was on 105.3 The Fan this morning to discuss it, and it is sounding like Lyle Collins will be your starting right tackle next Sunday. It's sounding like that. I don't think that is confirmed yet, but Jerry Jones was sharing some thoughts on the offensive line, and it does sound like Collins will be the starter, which I like. And I'm actually his wife too, says Mrs. Tom Downey Burner account. I figured. But thank you for being here, and thank you for tuning in and filling in for Tom Downey's burner account. What is up, Peter Ninja? Also over here. Wait till Lil Downey gets her burner account going. Stephen White, what is up, Stephen White? I hope you're good. We are on the road right now, so hence we have a different set for tonight's show. We are in a hotel room, actually. And I think this is actually quite fun, traveling with all of the equipment and getting the show together, because it doesn't matter where I am. We need to keep the show going. We need to keep primetime going. It is important for all of us to gather here to talk about some Dallas Cowboys football. And especially tonight, I think that what we are about to discuss is very important. Why the Cowboys' run defense is about to face maybe its toughest challenge yet. And I think that the fact that Washington has gone on a 4-game winning streak has been surprising to all of us. I don't think many of us expected Washington to get out of nowhere after struggling at the beginning of the season. And out of nowhere, they are 2 games behind the Dallas Cowboys. And they kind of control their destiny too, because they still have 2 games to go versus the Cowboys. And I'm not really scared about Washington. I mean, you shouldn't underrate, any team in the NFL, because we have seen how that goes for everyone, including the team. And I think that Washington could very well beat the Dallas Cowboys. But I'm not going to pick Washington. Right now, I can tell you, spoiler alert, for the Thursday show, I'm leaning heavily in favor of the Cowboys. That does not mean that this does not have the potential to be a close game. I think it does. And here's the thing, the Cowboys defense has been surprising after 13 weeks of the season. And 13 weeks is a lot. By now, we know that it's a legit improvement. This is not the Cowboys defense getting lucky. This is not them being opportunistic and making the most out of the opportunities that they've had in terms of interceptions by Trevon Diggs or some other takeaways from the Cowboys unit. So I think that the improvement that Dan Quinn has made on this defense has been more than legit. But here's the thing. They rank fourth in defense, in overall defense in DVOA. They rank fourth in pass DVOA. But if you take a look at run DVOA, they have struggled a little bit. They rank 19th in the NFL. And I don't think that is any kind of surprise, because we have seen the Cowboys when they have struggled the most. I believe that it has been when opposing offensive lines have been way more physical than the Cowboys' defensive front. And I'm a little bit afraid that might be the case on Sunday. Like, that would be my biggest concern. Not only that, but Antonio Gibson is being one of the running backs that forces the most missed tackles in the NFL. And Washington does a little bit of everything. Right now, they have one of the top offensive lines in terms of ESPN's run block win rate, which, measures individually how many times offensive linemen win their respective blocks. Washington has one of the best offensive lines in that regard, and they're actually one of the highest graded offensive lines by PFF. I know that everyone has their thoughts on the PFF grades, but I think they deserve some merit, especially when you take them into account as an entire unit, as is the case with offensive lines. So I think that Washington is onto something. And you look at the tape, and there's a little bit of everything in that tape. There are inside runs, but there are also a lot of stuff that we have kind of complained about the Cowboys not implementing in their own run game. But we see a lot of pulling offensive linemen, and we're not only talking about offensive tackles or offensive guards. We see their center, for example, pulling a lot, and that is something that they featured versus the Raiders last weekend. Actually, a lot of their offensive center pulling, a lot of play action, a lot of misdirection, whether that is with motion at the snap or just tight ends shifting their strong side constantly from one side to another. And I think that is great by Washington. And funny enough, oddly enough, I think it's a word, they rank about 27th in the NFL in terms of rush DVOA. So maybe they don't have the most efficient running attack, but they insist on it. And in recent weeks, they have improved quite a bit. Thank you, Burl Killer, for your comment, and thank you, Burl Killer, for your donation as well. He is saying in the chat, this is a de facto playoff game. We lose here, we have no business thinking Super Bowl. And I see what Burl means. And we touched on this last night. I agree with this being a big game for the Cowboys, and I agree with some of the concerns about the Cowboys potentially losing the NFC East if they struggle versus Washington over the next few weeks. I understand all of that, but to me, it's not only about losing the division to Washington. It's about, as Verl is saying, the Cowboys shouldn't lose this game, but there's some danger in it, and I think that the danger comes from Washington's run game because they have quite a running back. They have Antonio Gibson forcing missed tackles, and I think he's one of the leaders right now at this point of the season with about 23 forced missed tackles. I think PFF tweeted out something like that. But it's not only that, it's about them dominating on the trenches and dominating with all of the concepts that they run on their running offense. And I think they have done a lot of interesting stuff. And respect to them. I'm not really scared about Taylor Heinicke, though, and the passing game. I think that Heinicke has done some fun stuff for Washington, but I think that it is not as constant. And I think he makes a lot of poor throws every once in a while, and that costs the Washington. But also, they have been somewhat created with Terry McLaurin throughout the entire season, and they're not forcing McLaurin for what he is not. They're using him to stretch the field horizontally. They're not forcing him as a deep threat, even though he is at times, but they just getting him on space and making the most out of Terry McLaurin in the pass game. There was this stat not so long ago, I think it was before this weekend, where Taylor Heineke, over the last few games, he was completing 67% of his throws when under pressure. I don't think that is sustainable. That is a little bit like third down success, and that is something that we have to be careful with. A lot of these quarterbacks, they might get in these hot streaks, but it is difficult to be that accurate or that efficient versus the pressure for an extended period of time. Even more so when we are not really discussing an elite quarterback. Like if it was Aaron Rodgers, maybe, or players like that, or Patrick Mahomes, Russell Wilson, completing 67% of his passes when pressured, that's a different thing, maybe. But I think that Taylor Heineke has had some big moments, but I don't think he has been as consistent as many would make him out to be. What is up, Stevie Mac? Thank you for being here in the chat. As always, reminding people to hit the like button and share this stream. Even more so because we are on the road and it's a fun experience. It's a different experience for most of us. So make sure you leave the like button and make sure you share the show as well. Maybe Sunday we are on the road because maybe we're traveling to Cowboys games. Hey, that would be actually pretty amazing, I believe. I bring IT says over here on the YouTube, I on the YouTube chat. I believe the defense is keying on Gibson in this game. They will be better in the run game with D-Law. And D-Law's presence on the field is huge for the Cowboys. And usually when we're discussing edge rushers and stuff like that, we center in the pass rush, but Demarcus Lawrence is a force against the run. And the fact that the Cowboys are also getting Randy Gregory back, that is the expectation at least. And they're also maybe getting Neville Gallimore back for the inside defensive line. That is also huge for the Dallas Cowboys. Hey, I know that we say this every week, but this feels like a big game for Micah Parsons because we have seen some of the other linebackers for the Cowboys struggle a little bit, especially Leighton Vander Esch, for example, versus the run, and he's struggling a little bit on space as well. We might see a lot of Micah Parsons at inside linebacker with Gregory back. I think that gives the Cowboys more flexibility to move number 11 around. Hey, but remember, let's not marry Micah Parsons to any kind of specific role week to week. Like he can do it all within the same football game, but I think that we will see him plenty at linebacker. Barrel Killer says Cowboys 30, 49ers 20, 19-19 to NFC Championship game. Close second, says Barrel Killer. I don't know if this was responding to another comment. What a trip, Stevie. A show for Anthony Brown and me. LOL, too fun. Okay, so that is in response, I believe, to Stevie Mac saying people were definitely not happy with us today because of the Anthony Brown Dick segment. They didn't like seeing that Anthony Brown is playing solid this year. Hey, Anthony Brown really is. He really is. And I think that the fact that his worst game came because of penalty flags in a NFL game officiated by Hoshley, I think that should make us feel better about how Anthony Brown is playing. And I really thought a new background, says Dallas Junk. It is a temporary background because we are on the road. I am not home. I traveled with the equipment, but I am not home, and it is difficult to travel with the background, So we had to improvise here on ADC Sports Dallas Primetime. But I think that Anthony Brown has been good. I don't think that I'm betting on Anthony Brown to be this good season to season, year to year, but I do know that he's playing good football in 2021. Like the Cowboys are getting better play from each and every cornerback this season, maybe than we expected. Trevon Diggs might be the exception because maybe a lot of people had very high expectations on Trevon Diggs' sophomore year. But otherwise, nobody maybe would have called Trevon Diggs to have 9 picks at this point of the season. And I think that even Jordan Lewis has surpassed expectations because Lewis gets burned every once in a while. But Lewis also has had some big games. How about his performance versus Atlanta, for example, when he was out there making some big time stops? Over here we have Joseph as well saying he really hasn't had nothing but one bad game this year, and it's maybe the Bucks game, and if you want to count the Raiders game, that would be two. But again, the fact that that performance versus the Raiders isn't as bad in most games because he doesn't get flagged as much in most games, I believe. Maybe one or two of those penalty flags would have still, gone by in with any officiating crew. And up to some point, there's fault for Anthony Brown for making those penalties, but I still think that Anthony Brown has been solid this year. Maybe solid is an understatement, actually. I think that maybe we should say good. He should be good. Chuck says, John, I don't know why you're giving them the edge. Cowboys all day on the road or at home. And I'm going to get a little bit ahead of myself here on the show, and I will discuss the final topic that we have here on the overlay. The Cowboys opened as 4.5 favorites, and then the spread moved to 5.5, which to me was very logical. The Cowboys being backed by the public, that usually happens. Maybe some people trying to sell on Washington when they're high, when they're coming off from a 4-game winning streak. It made sense to me that the spread moved to 4.5 all the way up to minus 5.5, which would be actually a similar spread to the Saints. And you could argue that playing in the Superdome is even more difficult than playing in a FedEx Field that is struggling. Well, is the name still FedEx Field or is it not anymore? The fans from Washington are pretty pissed with their team because a lot of things. Didn't the franchise actually sue season ticket holders there? And isn't that stadium suffering from a lot of stuff? We had the video where the pipes bursted out and a lot of things were happening there on the stands for Washington. So I think that the fact that the spread was similar to the Saints game made a lot of sense to me. Now it's at 3.5 only. So the betting markets have pushed that line down. And I don't think that anything has happened to justify that move in terms of injury news. Because the closest that we could have to injury news that could affect the spread so much is the fact that Washington is aiming to get back Landon Collins, who missed last week's game for Washington, who we could call a safety, but he's not really safety anymore. We'll discuss this more in depth tomorrow. But Landon Collins is playing this sort of hybrid slash safety role, which Ron Rivera likes to call Buffalo nickel. But he's like the safety that plays near the line of scrimmage. Not in the box, though. He's usually playing as an overhang defender close to the seams. So different, interesting role for Landon Collins, and I think it will be an interesting role. Matchup to watch on Sunday. We'll discuss this even further tomorrow night on ADC Sports Dallas Primetime. But I don't think that the Landon Collins news or the Montez Sweat news, who could also be back on Sunday, I don't think those are enough to push the betting spread all the way down to 3.5. So I think that this is actually the betting markets telling us that they believe that Washington is better than what the opening lines suggested. But I was impressed about it. I was impressed about it. Lunatic says, and Lunatic got it a little bit wrong. But he says that Mauricio is moving on up. He got an office now. I mean, I have an office though, but this is my hotel room right now. This is prime time on the road. Washington fans were chanting, "We won Dallas" after Sunday. Washington football fans will be chanting, "We got our asses kicked by Dallas." Washington been getting their wins with 17 points, says Scotty King. And hey, that is true. Listen, and they have been able to control the time of possession. I don't know if that will happen versus the Cowboys. It could very well happen. As we are saying, stopping the run will be the first thing the Cowboys need to do versus Washington. And they might struggle a little bit to do so, at least at first, I believe, with all of the misdirection that Washington uses, the way that they pull their offensive linemen. And they seem to have a lot of counters for some run plays. Like they will run a concept and they will run counters to that concept each and every game. And I found that pretty interesting and a little bit stressful as we head into the weekend. But Taylor Heineke, during that 4-game winning streak, speaking of low scoring affairs for Washington, Taylor Heineke has not thrown over 35 passes in any of these games. So if the Cowboys are able to take the early lead, which is something that they have kind of struggled to do recently, I wouldn't bet on Taylor Heineke to be able to pull off a comeback. If the Cowboys can take away the threat of the running game early in the game or in the first half, that would be so big for this divisional matchup. Dwayne Wright says 33-17, Dallas, let's freaking go. Dwayne is already throwing out predictions. I'm going to save mine for Thursday night, but I will tell you that I am leaning the Cowboys way. I think that the Cowboys should have the advantage on this one. John Stanley says, but are their tackles good at all? I think that is what John is asking. Are their tackles good at all? I think that they don't have any truly elite offensive linemen, maybe, but I do think they have a solid offensive line. And I see them constantly beating their blocks, getting to their blocks in time. When they pull their offensive linemen, I think they do a better job than what we have seen from the Cowboys in limited reps. We complained about Connor McGovern making these pulls for Tyler Viatic as well. Tyler Viatic looked pretty good on that Tony Pollard big run from last weekend, but from last week, excuse me. But I think that Washington is being benefited by a good offensive line. Oh, this is a difficult question from Mitesh. Gifford for LVE. I think I don't know enough about Luke Gifford. I know he's a stud on special teams, and I know that he's an impact player on that. I'm not sure who he is as a linebacker though, because we have seen him mostly in the preseason. I think that Leighton Vander Esch does not stay with the Cowboys though beyond this season. Uh, Lunatic says, my prediction, another double-digit road win. Will be more specific after doing a deeper dive against the Washington football teams. Then he says, with a great running game, no need to pass as much. And that has been the case for Washington recently. They have bet on the running game heavily, and it has been paying off for them, even though efficiency stats do not prove that. As I was saying, I think that on rush DVOA, they are a bottom 12 team in the NFL, if not a bottom 5 team. Like they are struggling in terms of efficiency, but they are married to it and they will not stutter on running the football. And speaking of the run game, we know that Cowboys fans have their own complaints about their run game because the Cowboys are trying to play this smash mouth football, running straight into the A gap or the B gap, insisting on this inside runs from Ezekiel Elliott, even though he is hurt right now, because that is apparent. That, like, we cannot deny that Ezekiel Elliott is hurting out there on the football field. He's visually in pain, in my opinion, during these games. That was the case versus the Saints. I would be surprised if they dial it back and they decide to give some rest to Ezekiel Elliott. I think that if that didn't happen on Thursday night versus the Saints, I'm not expecting it to happen anytime soon. But Kellen Moore did say this, and I will read it I will read this quote from yesterday that Michael Gelkin from the Dallas Morning News tweeted out. He said that more outside runs is a great opportunity. And he also said that he views outside run concepts as more of an auxiliary call because of NFL defense's speed. So I think that he has a pointer. And I think that the Cowboys need to run more outside runs. And I think that is not a secret to anybody. Everyone knows it. And we are all hoping that when the Cowboys make their self scouting, which likely has already happened, that they figure out they need to mix in some outside runs and some outside concepts. But I do think that Kellen Moore is kind of right in saying that, like, that cannot be your bread and butter. That is exactly the point to me. The Cowboys need to be able to run the football through the A gap or through the V gap. They also need to mix in some outside runs, but the thing that they also need is to execute on inside runs. And many people are discussing this right now on social media, and I'm definitely not the first to point this out. But if you take a look at the play calling from the first few weeks of the season, you will see that this Dallas Cowboys team was actually running the football a lot with inside runs, even on early downs, which is something that I do not like. But it was working for them during the first few weeks of the season. So this is not about Kellen Moore out of nowhere making different play calls than he was earlier in the year. The fact is that now it is not working. And this is not to exonerate Kellen Moore of any fault because of his struggles, of his offensive struggles, because this has been going on for weeks now, and Kellen also has to adjust to some point, right? But this is also to say that the offensive line needs to make better blocks. Period. You can mix in some outside runs, but you also need to be able to execute the inside runs that you call. And I also hope that the Cowboys are more aggressive on early downs during the final stretch of the season. Because even though it was working earlier in the year, it is not working now. And hopefully the Cowboys shift towards a more aggressive approach now that they're about to face Washington, who has struggled to get some quarterback pressure on opponents. Of course, Chase Young is no longer with the team. Montez Sweat might come back. They're blitzing more. That's something that I've noticed from the recent games. They are blitzing way more. At the beginning of the year, it felt like they were betting on their front four to get the pressure by themselves. But during their game 4-game winning streak, they have been blitzing a little bit more and trying to get more one-on-ones. They run Payne, one player that we definitely need to watch out for, and also Jonathan Allen, who was named the candidate for the Walter Payton Man of the Year. Someone asked me who did I think was going to be nominated for the Dallas Cowboys. And I said that, listen, I really don't know because I don't know each of the players' foundations. I kind of tried to guess Dak Prescott because of his involvement with the mental health awareness efforts. And hey, it is Dak Prescott because of that. So your Dallas Cowboys Walter Payton Man of the Year nominee is none other than quarterback Dak Prescott. Run more than 3 times, LOL, says Barrel Killer. Yeah. Irene IT says, I wonder if they admit they're wrong about McGovern. Well, we all wanted McGovern in, but I see that was a mistake. You guys know that I'm on the Connor Williams, train, and I have been since week 1. So I do want Connor Williams back, and I agree with that, Bring IT. I also wonder whether they will admit to being wrong. I think they're not afraid of doing so. And it is sounding like the Cowboys are starting Lyle Collins next week. Thomas is out for Washington football team, and that's a plus. But their other tight end helps so much on the run game for Washington football team, says John. Yeah, I think that they will still be able to make their blocks. Kid says, toughest challenge yet. Oh, please Washed Upton has just an average run game at best. And with Gregory, Gallimore, D-Law, and company all over Heineke's case all day, they won't do squat. I like the optimism from Keith. And it's interesting, like calling Washington's run game average is interesting because if you use efficiency stats, for example, you can make that argument, which is something that I have been impressed by when preparing for the Washington game. But hey, I think that it might be the toughest run game for them. The Cowboys have struggled versus the run. If we're going to be fair with our own team and try to be a little bit unbiased, we know that the Cowboys, when they have struggled the most, it has been against the run. And I would like to be as convinced as Keith is in the chat. And I appreciate his optimism, of course. You guys know that even though I like the Cowboys and everything, I need to be I need to be as unbiased as I can. And I was looking at this schedule. I don't know if there has been a toughest game for the Cowboys in the run game because I know that Washington is going to try to run. Whereas other teams, like, for example, the Vikings, the Patriots, we knew that they were going maybe to go with a run-heavy approach, but we knew that they were also going to throw the football a little bit more. And I'm not sure that is the case versus Washington. If the game is close, I'm expecting Washington to keep running and running. Minnesota could be, as Lunatic is saying, the one game that could have been tougher than Washington. Is Gallimore playing at tackle, says John Stanley? He is. We are expecting Neville Gallimore back, and we are expecting him to play defensive tackle, though. Scotty says, we are freaking healthy now. We are. The Cowboys are at their healthiest right now. I'm just not sure that I'm very convinced about the 19th run defense when it comes to rush DVOA. But I think that it is, as Stephen White is saying, a good test for our brand new defense. That is true. This is a big test for the Cowboys. I think they will pass the test. I do think they will be able to pass the test, though. So, anyways, I really appreciate you guys. Thank you for being with me on the show. No excuses, as Team Sweet is saying, of course, in the chat. No more excuses for the Cowboys. It is December football that we are discussing right now in the NFL. So it is a time to start clicking. It is a time to get a winning streak going. And it is the time to start hitting up both on offense and on defense. And hopefully the Cowboys are able to look a little bit more like they did in September and October in terms of Dak Prescott and company. But anyways, guys, thank you so much for being with me on tonight's show. We are on the road. We needed to continue to stream the Primetime show. And as Richard is saying, time to start picking. Hey, listen, there are no Trevon Diggs jerseys out there. By the way, random thought of the day. I still cannot find any Trevon Diggs jerseys. I went to the Cowboys Pro Shop in El Paso today, over at the outlets, and there were some triple XL Trevon Diggs color rush jerseys. Other than that, I cannot find any. I'm hoping the Cowboys Pro Shop pulls off a restock anytime soon. Hey, thank you guys. Thank you guys for your comments. Scotty, Stephen White, Peter, each and every one of you. Thank you for choosing to listen to ADC Sports Dallas Primetime. Dallas Junk as well. And I think that Stevie Mac mentioned that you had extended your membership. So thank you for that, Dallas Junk, as well. And without further ado, I will let you enjoy your night. And I will remind you to visit adcsports.com/Dallas for more Cowboys content and more Mavericks content. Thank you, guys. Make sure you hit the like button. Make sure you share the show. I will see you tomorrow night. And as always, we will talk about one cool thing because it is Wednesday night. So be ready with your one cool thing, and we'll talk about some matchups to watch tomorrow versus the Washington football team. So thank you, guys, and I will see you tomorrow night, 8 p.m. Central.